All right, my second topic for this morning is queen management geared for Texas beekeepers. And really, this presentation is geared more toward beginner beekeepers for assistance in their queen management. So some of the topics I'll touch on, queen selection criteria for Texas beekeepers, signs that a queen needs to be replaced. What are we looking for? Queen replacement frequency and scheduling, some seasonal queen management tests that everyone should be checking on throughout the year, basic requeening techniques and introduction methods, preventing queen-related swarming, and then finally, performing a walkaway split, which allows you to select for desirable queen traits within your own apiary. So honeybee queen management is a key component of successful beekeeping. Nowhere is this more challenging and rewarding than in Texas with its vast size, climatic extremes, and ecological environment. For both commercial and hobby beekeepers, the health, genetics, and performance of the queen bee drive brood production, colony survival, temperament, honey yield, and resistance to pests and disease. Texas, with its scorching summers, drought cycles, periodic freezes, and immensely diverse foraging environments, demand region-specific management practices to keep hives thriving. Some queen selection criteria for Texas beekeepers. Queens should be chosen based on genetic stock suited to climate and challenges of Texas. Some of the essential traits to look for include mite and disease resistance, adaptability to drought and heat, gentle temperament, especially important for beginner beekeepers. That becomes a key factor. Robust brood patterns, and then strong honey yields. And then if you do your research, there are many local and regional queen breeders located across the state of Texas who provide queens that are selected and bred specifically for Texas' challenging environment. Some of the Texas tailored genetics to look for are Varroa mite resistance, which is a paramount factor to consider when selecting a queen. If possible, you should verify Varroa resistance traits with your queen breeder prior to purchase. And then gentleness, it aids in hive management, especially where Africanized genetics are a risk. You should also consider survivability and drought, under drought and heat. Select from queens from survivor stock that have been proven under periodic extreme weather conditions. And then look for brood consistency. Tight laying patterns and high egg output signal a vigorous, productive queen. And then the last topic here for the genetics is consider genetics that promote hygienic behavior, which aids in natural resistance and management of brood diseases. Now moving on to signs, when do you need to replace your queen? Here are some basic signs that you do need to replace your queen. If you notice reduced egg laying or poor brood patterns, if the brood is scattered or inconsistent in the coverage, if you see increased drone production, that may be an indication of a failed queen or an aging queen. And then if you notice an abrupt change in aggression, if the colony becomes more aggressive, if there's a temperament change. And then if the swarming preparations are frequent supersedure attempts, I mean, you may have an aging queen that needs to be changed out. And then last, obviously, if you recognize queenlessness, if you haven't seen eggs for more than 3 days, it may be time that your colony needs the new queen. So kind of the replacement frequency and scheduling. Honeybee queens may naturally live 2 to 3 years and up to 5 years in optimal conditions. Annual or biannual replacement is considered best practice for productivity, vigor, and disease management, especially in our challenging environment. In practice, you should plan to requeen in early spring, March through April, to ensure the new queen is established before peak nectar flows and the hot weather hit. You can still requeen mid to late summer, June to August, if spring requeening is missed or if just aren't queens available until that time of year, it's still viable. And then early fall requeening. Really, September is about the last month that will give you enough time, if you have a well-mated queen, to allow her to settle and create the colonies for the spring. You should avoid requeening after September in Central and North Texas, since the colonies need time to adjust and produce winter bees. October introductions are typically not successful. And then good idea for Texas variable climates, throughout the state, it's going to vary greatly. Means that the spring nectar flows and the fall freezes will differ by region. It's a good opportunity for you to consult with your local beekeeping club to fine-tune calendar timing in your specific area. Next, I'll discuss a few of the seasonal overall management tasks for queens. Spring is really the most critical period for queen management in Texas, given the rapid seasonal buildup, variable precipitation, and potential late cold snaps. Some of the core tasks, excuse me, conduct those early inspections. On the first warm day we have, if it's around 60, it's usually February or March in most of Texas. Inspect your colonies for queen presence, brood, and stores. You should be looking for eggs, larvae, and a solid, even brood pattern, which are indicators of a productive queen. It's a good opportunity at that time also to clean and inspect your equipment and replace any damaged frames and clean your bottom boards. Second, in the spring, replace those weak queens. If you're establishing new packages or nukes, introduce marked high-quality queens sourced from a reputable breeder tailored to Texas resistance traits. And if in established hives, requeen if spring inspections reveal spotty brood, decreased laying, or increased aggression. And then at that point too, you should be supporting the buildup of the colony. Feed your sugar syrup at a 1-to-1 ratio if natural nectar is scarce during the early blooms, and offer pollen patties to stimulate queen laying. Add brood supers as soon as 70 to 80% of your frames are covered with bees, ensuring the queen has space to expand the brood nest. Number 4, in the spring, you need to watch for swarming. This is the highest frequency of swarming, so monitor for queen cells along frame bottoms, which is a sign of swarm intent. Control the crowding by splitting overly strong colonies or removing brood frames, or requeening older queens with fresh stock. Then it's always a good idea, keep very detailed records. Record your queen's age, the introduction and replacement dates, her observed temperament, brood pattern, and intervention details for each hive. The careful spring queen management sets the tone for the rest of the year, with strong colonies needed for successful honey production and survival through Texas' extreme summers. Now we'll move into some of the queen management tasks for the summer. Obviously we hit our high temperatures, often exceeding 100 degrees. There's a drought risk, declining foraging, and they all provide challenges for the queens during our Texas summers. So you really need to monitor for queen failure with all the environmental stressors such as heat, dearth, and pest loads that can shorten the queen's longevity and depress egg laying. You should check for reduced brood, increased mite loads, aggression changes, and symptoms of queenlessness. So all of these tasks you should be doing during the summer months. And then you can still experience swarming in the summer. Even after spring, late swarms can occur. Regular inspections conducted every 7 to 14 days help catch queen cells or overcrowding. If swarm cells are observed, split the hive or remove and destroy excess queen cells. And then ensure during the hot summer months that you have proper ventilation. May consider shading hives during the summer months, and also ensure that they've got an adequate water source readily available. And then the third thing to check for in the summer, requeening. Summer is viable for emergency or elective requeening if incumbent queens fail, exhibit undesirable traits, or collapse due to heat. So you still have that opportunity to requeen at that time. And then the fourth thing on the summer list, you should limit disturbance during the extreme heat. Conduct your inspections early in the morning or early evening to minimize bee and queen stress, and avoid opening the hive during the peak of the day. And then prompt interventions reduce losses associated with summer die-offs or poor performing queens. So as long as you're monitoring, you're able to stay ahead of the problem to the greatest degree possible. And drought and nectar dearth amplify queen and colony losses, that stress. So it's even more vital during the summer to really be watching over your colonies. Fall management. Here we're preparing for winter survival in Texas. That's complicated by variable autumn nectar flows and the risk of early frosts and sudden freezes. So number one, in the fall, you should be evaluating your queen's performance. When the honey flow and scrutinize the performance, and weak or aged queens should be replaced to ensure a strong population of winter bees. Requeen, if you're going to requeen before winter, through most parts of Texas, usually September is generally the last feasible month to requeen if you're using a well-mated queen. Otherwise, you're going to run out of time for her to establish new bees for overwintering. And then it's a good time to consolidate your colonies, combine the weak or queenless hives with stronger neighbors, and preserve the best performing queen and kill off or remove the weaker queen. You also want to make sure that you've got adequate stores to get you through the winter. Strong queens will continue to lay if pollen and nectar are available, so supplement with sugar syrup if stores are inadequate. And when you get to those winter months, some of the queen management tasks, number one, you should really minimize disturbance in the colony. Once winter sets in, avoid opening hives except in emergencies or on warm, calm days. Monitor hive weight to ensure bees have enough stores, adding fondant or dry sugar if needed. And then it's an opportunity to also, if you do have to open those colonies, to mark your overwintered queens and make things easier in the springtime. So the primary goal going in the winter is enter the winter with young, vigorous, mite-resistant queens, heading populous colonies with abundant stores and minimal disease pressure. So this table represents, it's kind of a culmination, list all of the queen management tasks in the center column. On the left is the seasonal column, and then on the right-hand column is more specifically the months that you should be performing those tasks or monitoring your queens. So next, I'd like to talk a little bit about requeening techniques and queen introduction methods. Successful requeening depends on methodically preparing the colony and new queen for acceptance. Touch on three queen introduction methods that are often used. Number one, I think this is the most widely used introduction method, just the caged queen. You want to kill the old queen or move her to a separate nuke and wait approximately 24 hours so the colony will recognize queenlessness. Then place a new queen in her shipping cage with the candy plug facing downward between frames of brood near the center of the nest. And if you're in times of dearth, feed sugar syrup to simulate a nectar flow, which improves acceptance of the queens. You allow about 5 to 7 days before checking for release and acceptance of the queen. You should look for eggs in a calm, organized colony and an absence of queen cells. The second technique is a push-in cage introduction method, and it's usually used when there's a valuable queen or an instrumentally inseminated queen or a maximum care is required. Consists of a push-in cage against comb containing emerging brood, nectar, and pollen. You place the queen inside, leave her there for 3 to 5 days to ensure that she is laying eggs under that cage before you release her, and that way you know she's accepted. And then a third method, although not used very often, that is much riskier, is just a direct release method. That's basically if you know that the old queen was recently removed or has died off and the colony is eager for a new queen, a direct release of the new queen into the brood nest can be used. But I think the other methodologies will give you much better results, especially using the cage method. So here's some tips for maximizing requeening success. Never introduce a new queen if there's a possibility of an existing queen or queen cells. You need to make sure all queen cells are removed, as they will compete with the new queen. Time the introductions for periods of nectar flow or simulate one with feeding, and this will aid in acceptance of the queen as well. And then for large defensive or Africanized hives, split the colony first to aid in acceptance. You should make sure to, excuse me, leave the colony undisturbed for 5 to 7 days before checking on the queen acceptance. And then if the queen has not been accepted, you may want to double check to make sure you haven't missed any remaining queen cells, and then repeat the process for adding a new queen. Another critical thing in terms of queen management is preventing queen-related swarming. Swarming is a natural reproductive behavior in bees, but leads to population loss and reduced honey yield productions when unmanaged. Some of the key swarm prevention tactics, the biggest way to stop it is by regularly inspecting your hives every 7 to 10 days, especially in the spring when that's the peak swarm time in Texas. So look for queen cells, congestion, backfilling of brood nests, and bearding. They're running out of space, so you need to make sure you provide ample space. You should be adding brood boxes or supers before bees fill 80% of the frames to ensure adequate comb for laying and storage. And then it's a good opportunity to split strong colonies. Move frames of brood and bees to a new box or hive, introducing a new queen as needed. And then some preemptive things. Older queens, you should replace queens 2+ years or more before swarm season, because younger queens will have a lower swarming impulse. And then make sure you remove, when you're doing your inspections, if you come across queen cells, remove the swarm cells unless you're planning a split. There's a photo showing swarm cells located at the bottom of that frame. So unless you're planning to split that hive, you should remove those as soon as possible. Then number 6, and this is primarily in the summer months. I said that's still a possibility for swarming. Improve your ventilation and shade during hot summer months. The excessive internal hive temperature can be a stress trigger for swarming behavior. And then finally, it's a good idea to rotate brood frame. You should replace old dark comb to disrupt swarm triggers and improve bee health. Good rule of thumb is to replace approximately 1/3 of your frames and foundation each year. Now, in terms of colony division, there are a number of various colony division techniques, but I'd like to address the walkaway split. It stands out for its simplicity, low cost, and minimal need to locate the queen. And also because this technique also provides a method to select for desirable queen traits, such as honey production, disease resistance, or temperament, and is ideal for beekeepers aiming to expand their apiaries or proactively control swarming. So a walkaway split is a beekeeping technique in which a beekeeper divides a robust, healthy colony into 2 or more parts, leaving the queen in one half and allowing the queenless half to rear a new queen from young larvae or eggs without direct intervention. Unlike managed or queen cell splits, this method does not require the beekeeper to physically locate the queen or introduce a purchased or preformed queen cell. Instead, after the split, the 2 colonies are left alone, thus the name a walkaway split, and the queenless side operates under its natural instincts to create a new queen. So what are the objectives and benefits of a walkaway split? Well, number 1 is swarm prevention. It relieves the population pressure, reducing the chance of swarming. And it's a great opportunity for apiary expansion, creates new colonies naturally, allowing the beekeeper's operation to grow quickly. Then, as I mentioned, queen rearing. It allows a beekeeper to select from favorable queen traits exhibited within their apiary to produce splits which may be better adapted to the local environment. So if you've got that favorite colony that's strong, that's a good honey producer, and you like its temperament, that's one you want to split. It also aids in integrated pest and disease management, provides a temporary brood break, and this to reduce the varroa mite loads. So the walkaway split process is simple and requires less labor compared to managed splits, making it a very popular choice for beginner beekeepers. Now, the ideal time to do a walkaway is after winter in the spring or very early summer. That's when the colonies have built their strength and drones are present for mating. It's generally between March and June in Texas. And why is this time frame preferred? Well, there should be a strong nectar flow with ample forage resources that will allow both the new and the established hives to recover quickly from the split. So you're looking to build those colonies back up as fast as possible. Also, drone presence in terms of that new colony. That virgin queen requires drones for mating, and the drone presence peaks in spring and early summer. Then also there should be favorable weather conditions at that time of year. Mild temperatures prevent chilled brood and support queen mating flights. Now, if you miss that opportunity, that ideal time frame, if you split too early, before a reliable nectar flow or before drones are available, it can doom your new colony due to lack of mating opportunities or food. And splitting too late, late fall, summer or fall, leaves the new colony without enough time to raise a queen, rebuild populations, and store food ahead of winter. So you really want to hit that sweet spot in the spring and early summer. So some of the Texas-specific timing, it's a huge state. The varied climates means split windows can begin as early as February in South Texas and extend into April and May in North Texas, depending on local forage and weather patterns. Again, you should consult with your local beekeeper club or cooperative extensions to hone your precise timing based on regional last frost dates and nectar flows in your area. So in order to do your successful walkaway split, you're obviously going to need additional equipment. So this is kind of a checklist of everything that you'll need. You want to make sure when you're going out in the field to do that split, you've got everything prepared and ready so you're not making multiple trips back and leaving those colonies open. So obviously you're going to need new boxes. You're going to need a new bottom board, your covers, frames, and it's best if you can provide a drawn out comb on those frames. And then a hive tool, your protective clothing. You're going to need your entrance reducer and a sugar syrup feeder. So you want to make sure again that you have all of that prepared and ready for you when you start the split. So what are the actual steps in doing this split? Number one, you need to assess the colony's readiness. Only robust hives should be split. If you try to split a weak or first year colony, it usually dooms both halves. So what you need to look for, at least 8 to 10 frames of bees with several frames of brood, eggs, larvae, and capped brood, a good reserve of pollen and honey in both brood chambers, and then visible drones. They're going to be necessary for the mating flights, and no obvious current queen issues of the colony that you're splitting. And then really you want to make sure there's no active infestations of pests. Your varroa mite loads are under your treatment thresholds, and make sure there's no other major disease symptoms before splitting that colony. Step 2 is a preparation of that new equipment. So you start with a new hive stand a few feet away. Excuse me. To minimize bee drift, some beekeepers recommend moving the split at least 2 miles away. However, locating the split in the same yard is acceptable, realizing some foragers will return to the original hive. You need to have your new hive box, the bottom boards, all your frames and foundation and covers at the ready. So once you start this process, you want to make sure that you're well prepared and able to close up those colonies as soon as possible. So when you open that hive, you start by smoking your bees and locate the brood frames. Again, you want to be looking for frames that have eggs and young larvae, cap brood, pollen, and honey. You do not necessarily need to find the queen at this point. Step 4 is the division of the frames between the old hive and the new. And there's one real simple technique, just a box off if you're working with a double deep system, where you simply take that top box off, place it on a new bottom board, and seal up both of those colonies, add a new brood box, and your split is done. Now, this isn't very controlled, and it's not a method that I would recommend. I think a much better approach is frame by frame, kind of the custom split. And that consists of transferring 2 to 4 frames of brood, including the eggs and young larvae, well covered with nurse bees into the new hive to start with. Then add 2 frames of honey and pollen, and then fill the remainder of the brood box with frames and foundation. If possible, that comb should be drawn out so the worker bees are not having to build that up. If the split is lightly populated, make sure you shake additional bees to cover all the brood. And make sure both hives have a balance of brood and food frames. The split must have enough nurse bees to cover all of the brood. One way you can increase that number of nurse bees, simply taking your new frames and foundation from the split, install a queen excluder over your parent box, leave that box on for an hour or so, let some of those nurse bees come back up, and then transfer those to the new split. Then once the split is achieved, then you go into the relocation. As I previously mentioned, some beekeepers recommend relocating the split at least 2 to 3 miles away, mainly to prevent forage or drift. But this is rarely practical for small-scale beekeepers. If the splits are kept side by side, you can expect more foragers to return to the parent colony, leaving more nurse bees with the split. And that's still going to be acceptable. You just need to monitor that split to make sure you don't need to add additional bees. And then supplemental feeding. When the split's done, you want to make sure you provide a feeder with a 1-to-1 sugar syrup if the natural nectar flow is poor, or if you're using a lot of open foundation, as it simulates comb building and supports weak colonies. Then optionally, you may want to add a pollen patty for protein. Close both hives up and reduce the entrance to the split to limit robbery. And in terms of the actual frame placement and management, ensuring each split has the necessary demographics and resources is crucial for the success on the split. Your minimum requirements for the new split side, as I mentioned, 1 to 2 frames with open brood and eggs. You've got to have enough nurse bees to cover all that open brood. And then the food source, 1 to 2 frames of honey and nectar. And those should be placed adjacent to the brood. Otherwise, your split may starve if they don't have immediate food sources available. Now, the original hive, it should retain the queen, although it's not necessary. If she's not there, she'll act really as the new split and produce her own queen. But you need to make sure that the original hive is left with enough resources as well, so both sides, your new split and the parent hive, can recover as quickly as possible. And in terms of organizing frames within that split, you should always center the brood in the middle, flanked by the pollen and honey, and then fill out your box with the foundation frames. Now, some of the best practices to remember in doing your split: if possible, leave both colonies with similar populations. In practice, the parent colony often ends up stronger, which is acceptable. The split, if done correctly, she'll catch up quickly. And then if splitting in late or marginal conditions, you should always err on the side of putting in more bees, brood, and resources into the split itself. Again, that sugar syrup at a 1-to-1 ratio used initially in the spring and summer, and then switching to a 2-to-1 ratio by weight in the fall to build up those stores. And then you should also be adding protein patties or substitutes. Now, some important feeding practices to remember as you're providing that additional feeding Only feed as much as the bees can consume in a few days to avoid fermentation. Never feed sugar syrup when the honey supers are on and producing honey for human consumption. Then you always want to make sure that the bees have direct access to a fresh water supply. So how does the split actually work? Once the split is made, the queenless portion of the split will begin to raise a new queen from very young larvae or eggs. Nurse bees sense the absence of the queen pheromone, and within hours of the split, begin to feed selected young brood with copious amounts of royal jelly, converting worker larvae into potential queens. Emergency queen cells are constructed, most often on the face or edge of the brood frames containing eggs or young larvae. The timeline for all of this, queen cells, if your split is successful, they'll be visible within 3 to 5 days. New queens usually emerge around day 16, counted from when the egg was laid. Then the virgin queen will take her orientation flight and then the mating flights if the weather is good. Once mated, she'll typically start laying eggs within 3 to 7 days of her mating flight. And then the worker brood from the new queen should appear within your split within about 4 to 5 weeks after the split. And during the interim, the population will decline as no new workers are laid during this queenless period. So here's a table indicating some kind of quick check signs to see if your split is a success or failure. So the things you want, the successful indicators, presence of mature queen cells. Then you may even be lucky enough to see the virgin queen. The new eggs and larvae should be visible within about 4 weeks. And the overall temperament of the colony, it should be calm and focused bee behavior. And then the population of that colony in the split will stabilize and then eventually start to increase. The signs of obvious failure include if there are no queen cells present, queen cells torn down, and if you don't see eggs after 4 to 5 weeks, and if there's a disorder or agitated bees in the colony, and then if the population continues to dwindle. Those are clear signs that your split hasn't taken, and you'll have to consider other measures. So in conclusion, queen management really lies at the heart of successful beekeeping in Texas. With the climate volatility escalating and pest disease challenges mounting, the Texas beekeeper's best defense is strategic, seasonally aware, genetics-driven queen management. You should select queens bred for your particular region, plan on annual or biannual requeening, particularly before intense seasonal extremes. Then practice vigilant monitoring and adapt integrated health management approaches for both the queen and the colonies. Record keeping, continuous education, and leveraging those local breeder networks will help Texas beekeepers to weather environmental uncertainties, optimize honey production, and ensure sustainable stewardship of one of agriculture's most vital pollinators. Thank you. So, any questions? All right. I guess everyone's ready for lunch. All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, I was trying to watch the clock there.